Hello YouTube, my name is Damien Lemaitre and this is my first review on a Bachmann engine. This is Bakerloo from Underground Ernie. Currently he's the only one that I've got in the Underground Ernie Bachmann range. I hope to get some more. Unfortunately they're discontinued, but I still think there's some hope to get some. So firstly, looking at the model, it's a very well detailed sort of model. So there's Bakerloo, and then there's his coach, and from behind they look very similar. The only difference is that obviously Bakerloo has a face, the coach doesn't, and then obviously Bakerloo has an engine. So if we just take a look underneath Bakerloo, you can see that his front back wheels don't have a motor, so bogies, and then you've got the motor at the front here, and you can just about see that there's some traction tyres on the wheels there. The first time I ever saw an Underground Ernie engine was at Worley last year when I went to the NEC with my brother Adam. I think the one I saw there was Jubilee, and then I found out unfortunately the range was discontinued. I saw this one on the internet for $24.99, which isn't a bad price because you get the engine and you get the coach, and of course it discontinued. And I thought that was my cheapest one, but then I remembered that I got this locomotive here for £18, and that also came with the box, which you can see here. But $24.99 is still not bad because, like I said, you get a coach with it as well. So you've got a complete set, whereas if you were buying twins, like, I don't know, Bill and Ben, Harry and Bert, they're both more expensive. When buying it, I was a bit worried about the scale of it and how it would fit in with the other engines. But I've compared the sizes with a variety of engines. And as you can see, it's not too bad. He is slightly taller. I think what makes him slightly taller compared to the other engines is the fact that he's obviously got the vents on the top and he's got his hat, and he's roughly not far off Henry too much really, and the back part of Henry more or less sort of comes up, but then when you've had the vents on top it's roughly a bit taller. Like the other Bachmann engines, Bakerloo has moving eyes. Salty, as you can see, Bachmann Salty. Going off the topic for a few minutes, Salty actually had a bit of an accident last week, and I broke his buffer there, as you can see in the picture here. But we've managed to fix him, and he's good as new. So like I said, they've got moving eyes, which is very impressive. Now this locomotive is a first for many things really. It is the heaviest loco that I think in my range so far I've got, whereas the coach on the other hand is really light. I've compared the coach to some other trucks and coaches. I can't fit them all on screen, but I've compared it to these ones, and like I said, the coach in comparison amazingly is quite light, quite hollow. And like I said, whereas you've got the engine that comes with it, and it's the heaviest thing. So in comparison, these are the heaviest of the engines that I've got. So we've got Douglas from Thomas the Tank Engine, just here. We've got the Duchess of Hamilton model. Duchess of Hamilton. Got the Mallard. I've also got Spencer, which is the same sort of weight. Murdoch from Thomas the Tank Engine, and of course the Flying Scotsman, which you can see here. Like I said, amazingly, all of these locos, the boxes are roughly around the same weight. I'll move on to the packaging in a second, but the boxes are around the same weight. The front half of the engines, like I said, Bakerloo, not as long as these, is actually a lot heavier in comparison. And if I do get any more Underground Ernie engines, it will be very interesting to see how heavy they are. So as I was saying, I was going to move on to the packaging now. I was really impressed with the packaging that the Underground Ernie engine came in. In fact, when I saw it on the internet, I didn't even believe that it was a Bachmann engine, to be honest. I thought it was some sort of another range basically. I didn't believe it was Bachmann really until I saw the back of the box and obviously saw on the internet. It's really well. It was really well packaged. It's nice that you can see the engine through the little holes at the end. Also, it comes in 2 separate bits of plastic. It did take me a bit of a while to work out how to open it, but if you look where my finger's pointing, there was some sellotape. Just cut that, and you can just move it quite easily apart. A lot of people say that with I think it's a lot better than the Thomas Bachmann range. As you can see, I've got Toby and I've got Donald. And what I've done with the packaging is done it so that I can just cut round. I've just cut around it and from a different angle just open it, and it's quite safe until I get my layout sorted. So that was Toby and there's Donald. So 2 separate bits of plastic, quite well packed until I get my layout sorted. I was a bit worried with Bakerloo's height at first, as I might have said earlier. A bit worried about his height, but it shouldn't be much of an issue on the layout. And I've got some of my buildings already, like the platform and my footbridge, and I've managed to put them in there quite a bit above him, so it's not too tall. Wideness, as I was saying earlier, so I'll get Percy, probably the best example. He's roughly as wide as that. One thing I will say though is that on both the carriage and the engine itself, the doors and then this little bit here do stick out a tiny bit, but nevertheless it's not an issue really, and I think it's always better really to put back down, then put your engines on the track, and then get your widest engine, and then you can do a comparison. So that, touch wood, that you don't have any issues when it's going around your layout. A few months ago, amazingly, I took Bachmann Bill and Ben, not the Hornby one, the Bachmann Bill and Ben, to the Wellingborough Museum, and there was only one line that it was allowed to go around because it was too wide at the front. And the only line that it was able to go around without catching on the platform was the one that it was travelling on in this picture just here. And I know down at the museum they have a Hornby Toby, which again is quite wide. I have a Hornby Toby and a Hornby Ben. And yeah, they're very big, wide engines, but with Bakerloo, I really don't think you'll have this sort of issue. Now I move on to the cons of this item. There wasn't many. I'm mainly impressed. Like I said, I think the detail on it's absolutely superb. But one thing I will say is what I don't really like too much is the fact that it's got these random buffers. I didn't watch Underground Ernie much when I was younger, if I'm completely honest. I did watch it a bit, I'm not ashamed to admit that, but I did watch it. And then you've got these buffers, and I don't ever remember underground engines having buffers. I've looked on Google, and there was a maintenance engine on the real Underground that had buffers, but I've never ever noticed them Underground Ernie, and also they look a bit sort of cheap really. It's like they're sort of not necessary really. I mean, it's a bit like Elizabeth here in the Take and Play range. You know, she's got some buffers added to the back, and Elizabeth's a lorry, she doesn't need buffers, so like, why did they add them? And then you've got Alfie here, and this is a take and play one, and so he's not got any buffers, and he doesn't need them again. You know, he's a lot better model for that really. And I think if they were going to put buffers on the underground ones, they could have made a bit more sort of effort to add some buffer beams so they stick out, so they're not just sort of these random green blocks. You can understand why they've put the bar there, because they have to bear in mind the coupling, which is why the bar's there. But I would have just been happy, to be honest, if the bar was there and just not the buffers. If I get another one, it'll be good to see a comparison, to see what they've done on them. The next item I'll move on to is speed. Bakerloo isn't as fast as he probably should be, and the main reason he probably isn't as fast as he should be is because of the weight. And like I said, he's got these traction tyres underneath to help him move along. But the reason he's so heavy is because he's got these eyes, because obviously he's got the motor and that. The eyes is the next issue. You can quite easily see between the gaps on his eyes from certain angles. You can see through the back, And like when he's coming around the bend towards me, sometimes all you can just sort of see, like from that angle, is just sort of black. Really, it's like he's got no eyes at all, really. And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the eyes are probably the block that the eyes on are probably no wider than my little finger here, and probably just a bit shorter. But even so, you can see through the gaps between them easily. Whereas you've got other Bachmann engines, again using Salty as an example, as is here, really, and you can't see any black between or gaps between his eyes at all, because of how well compact his face is, really. And if they put a bit more plastic on, maybe you wouldn't be able to see the plastic. You wouldn't be able to see between the gaps too much. Another thing that I've noticed about Bakerloo is the size of his wheels. I think it's really realistic. They're really tiny, like the real London Underground engines. This is really realistic. So it's not really that bad. And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, again going back to the eyes, you can just sort of see that you can see black from that angle, really. Whereas if I put Salty next to him, you can see his eyes are in a funny position, but you can more or less see his eyes. You can't just see a black sort of bit like you can there. What was it? So his wheels are quite small. I'd say his wheels were probably no bigger than the driving wheels on an N-gauge locomotive, and he's actually got really small wheels. I mean, he's got smaller wheels than this truck. He's got smaller wheels than Stepney. So he's got smaller wheels than basically every model. So again, it's the first, really. It's the heaviest. The coach is the lightest, and so it's got the smallest wheels. But that's not a criticism. That is really good. But as I say, going back to the speed, it's a shame that he's so heavy, because it does attract his overall speed. It's why he's so slow, and he's got these sort of tyres that help him, sort of thing. But his weight's sort of really pushing him down, which is why he's not as fast as he probably should be. And I think that is a bit of a shame, really. If I'm honest, a bit of a shame. Also, when he goes around the layout, I don't know if you noticed in the footage, he does sort of wobble a bit, and I think that's because there's quite a distinctive gap between where the wheels are spaced out. For those of you that sort of watched Thomas the Tank Engine or read the Railway Series book, Scarlett had the same problem. He had 4 wheels originally, was a bit wobbly, hence why the story was called Bucking Bronco. But he came back with 6 wheels, and when he came back with 6 wheels, he was a lot more stable. I also found out the other day that Sir Handel actually had the same problem. He had 4 wheels originally, and then when the back 2 were added, he was a lot better and a lot steadier engine. Overall, like I said, I think it's a very good model. I'd like to hopefully get some more. Like I said, they are discontinued, but I've been quite lucky, really, to get it, because I say it's discontinued. They were discontinued in around 2009, but just because it's discontinued, it doesn't mean you can't get it. I've been quite lucky this year. I've managed to get Oliver, and I've managed to get Toad. I said they're both discontinued, but I've managed to get them. Overall, I give this model a 8.5 out of 10. I think that's very reasonable. I said, bearing in mind the improvements that it could that I mentioned, like I said, it could probably not have the buffers, and the eyes could be a bit better. It'll be, like I said, if I get some more, it'd be very interesting to see how much, and say what differences there are. While looking online, doing a bit of research for Underground Ernie, I found out that they're actually trying to make a new television series, and I provided it in the description below my video. There's also descriptions to contact Bachmann to persuade them to bring the Underground Ernie range back, and for the Thomas the Tank Engine range to come back. Thomas the Tank Engine's still current and on TV, so there is some hope for that. Whereas Underground Ernie isn't on TV, and so if we can help raise money towards a TV series, we could probably persuade them to bring them back. Really, even if it was limited edition, it would be better if we brought them back. Really, for everyone's benefit. Really. Thank you for watching. If you've got any other questions you'd like to ask about the model that I've not mentioned, I hope I've mentioned everything, but if not, you can just please comment below and I'll be happy to ask any questions. I hope you've enjoyed the review and I've not bored you for too long. So I hope to do some more in the future, but this is the end of this one for now. Thank you for watching.